This is the Criterion Creeps podcast. And tonight we're talking about Metropolitan from 1990, directed by Whit Stillman. Is that your first or second favorite director, RJ?
Whit Stillman?
Yeah.
It'd be a tough toss up. I mean, him and Woody Ballin, not Woody Allen, Woody Ballin. He's this other guy. He's kind of like an insider, like not a lot of people. Well, I mean, among other things potentially, but who's to say Whit Stillman doesn't fit in that camp also? Who's to say?
Who's to say? Well, not us. But the tagline for this film, RJ. Finally, a film about the downwardly mobile.
Finally?
Yeah.
Is that how they want to approach that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a little facetious, RJ.
I don't know what that word means.
A radical student is adopted by a group of young New Yorkers, serves as a catalyst to alter his and their lives. Gathering in a Manhattan apartment, the group of friends meet to discuss social mobility, Fourier's socialism, and play bridge in their cocoon of upper-class society until they are joined by a man with a critical view of their way of life.
I mean, I guess that's a description.
Things happen. Things go down.
Yeah. They didn't mention the portal to the other world in the description here.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. I guess they didn't want to.
Whatever happened when that apartment building burnt down?
I don't know. It's New York, man. Crazy shit happens in New York every day. You know what I mean?
No.
No.
So, RJ, I didn't know anything about Metropolitan when it came along. I had no idea that it was like from 1990 until a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, this is like a contemporary movie. It had kind of popped up on my radar back when we were doing Trome. And I was looking over
because of the mass overlap between Metropolitan and Lloyd Kaufman. Hey?
Yeah, Lloyd Kaufman, who's in one of the outtakes.
Of this?
I think.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that, right?
Yes, which I did not get to when I was watching this week, because I kind of forgot all about it. But he's in there, kind of, so it's like he's a side note in the Criterion Collection, at least. Until those...
Well, he made it.
And until he's on one of the discs, but not in the movie itself. But other than that, I kind of knew the poster is kind of this nice drawing, this New Yorker style drawing of young people. And you're like, oh, look how nice and kind these people look. They're just going about their lives with this lampshade. Some nice cross hatching going on. People looking at one another, but not all are featured. Because there's no Nick. There's no Nick in this drawing. Sorry, Nick's the ginger, and Tom is the raging incel.
Yes. Well, there's 5 in this picture, but at any given time, their numbers vary from 6 to 8.
Yeah, because there's also Fred. Who's the
is that the alpha male?
No, he's the vomiter.
Oh, okay. He's the vomiter, and then which one's the alpha male again?
Well, he doesn't.
Who's got the house in the Hamptons?
Oh, that guy's not part of the group proper.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but he mixes in a couple scenes. Yeah, that's what I mean from ranging from numbers.
Because you're thinking of Rick Von Slonaker.
Yeah, the alpha,
played by Will Kemp, who's only been in this Last Days of Disco, which is also a Whit Stillman movie. Which is, I think, the third one of this so-called trilogy. The second one being Barcelona. But he's also in a horror movie called Pledge Night, which I think is maybe a Vinegar Syndrome release. Something like that.
No, come on.
I think one of the boutiques might have put this out, but I could be wrong.
I mean, you could be.
Okay.
I'm not going to say you are. I'm not going to look into it. But let's just say that you could be wrong. You could be right, too.
All right. So, I didn't know too much about this. And so, This is a movie, RJ. Another one of these movies where I watched it twice this week.
You've been doing that lately because you like them so much.
I love cinema. I devour it.
Yeah, I know. So, wait. You don't have to say yes or no. But you only really watch movies twice if you love them, or sometimes you you fall asleep in them, I think. So you watch them again, or you just don't. You're like, maybe I didn't give it its due credit. Maybe I should check it out again. You've done a few times,
right?
Are any of those the options here, or was it something?
Well, this
some
is
other reason.
No, this is the one where it's like, well, you say fall asleep. Well, I mean, or half pay attention to, because you start
resting your eyes.
No resting eyes. I didn't fall. Okay. I didn't doze off. I just the first time I tried watching this, I did not give a shit about anything, because I was watching this movie and I'm like, what the fuck is this dialogue? Who are these characters? What? These are all rich kids? It's like they're going to be doing rich kid stuff, and like you're reading this dialogue talking about Fourier, saying you're a Fourianist. Like, what the shit am I doing with my life? What's this Metropolitan bullshit? This sub Woody Allen crap? Like, what? I'm like, I am not in any way in the mood to do this, but I have to watch this movie because it's Sunday. It's Sunday.
That is the fashion.
That is the fashion. I pop it on. It's like, no matter. This is one of the flaws with the Criterion Creeps project, is that you have us coming into these movies, coming in cold. We have zero interest in whatever it is that we're watching a lot of the time, because it's just like, that's just what the arbitrary spine number is. So whatever it is, it's like, you got to watch it. We're not coming in with like being like, I'm kind of curious about Wilt's old Whit Stillman, and I want to know more about his oeuvre, or being like, I'm curious, and like you're going in with an open mind and kind of go, okay, let's just see what this is. This is like, this is work. This is
work.
I've got to get this banged out. Time is of the essence, and whatever it is, it's like, it better be easy to watch. It better be smooth. And sometimes it can be a good thing. A lot of the time it's a mediocre thing, and once in a while it's like, oh my god, end it. This is beyond garbage. And the first time I watched this movie, I was like, man, this is some real garbage. I resent this movie a lot.
So much that you decided to watch it again.
Hey? Well, I found myself with some time on my hands, RJ.
Yeah, I've been known to have time, not very often.
And I was kind of like, this movie does have a lot of like the dialogue. I remembered some lines, which I'll have to send you some screenshots, RJ.
Yeah, I haven't taken mine yet, so if you have any, send them my way. Well, I have the recordings.
I'll hook you up. Let me do my piece here. So I was like, well, fuck, I got time. I can start like going through this, and maybe the experience will be different, and I'll get the screenshots, because there is some like stuff that I think we'll be able to take advantage of for a long time to come.
Yes, I agree.
I was like, so there's that part to it. But I will say that, RJ, that upon second viewing, it was a dramatic reversal from being like very like down on Metropolitan to being like, this is actually pretty good. Once you get into what it is, like what it's doing, I guess. And
what is it doing, Jarrett?
I don't know. It's presenting just a story about these rich kids that are very much like, it's like a Breakfast Club, but with bougie kids. In fact, though, because I think the go-to with this movie, and it's very easy to on a surface level, is to say, this is just like Woody Allen stuff. Like, this is just completely like a Woody Allen riff. That's what I thought when I was like, oh my god. But this is like not couched in what makes Woody Allen work, where his rich, privileged characters kind of are doing things that I think viewers would have some shared lived experience with to some degree. Like, they come off a little bit more relatable. But, because I don't know, they're usually like, I don't know, they have struggles where watching Metropolitan, it's kind of easy. I found it very easy to miss that this is kind of like this kind of dorky love story. But it doesn't feel like that the first time I watched this anyway. Upon the second viewing, it became a lot more evident what this almost non-existent plot is about, and I was like, oh, okay. So like the whole, like, I think the ending of this movie actually really ties things up fairly well. So what is this movie all about? That I've actually come around to liking a bit. So we're following Nick, the red-haired kid, who just happens to be trying to catch a cab. The implication that we get later was this was part of kind of a ruse that he had bought. He rents a tuxedo or a suit to basically maybe catch along with the Sally Fowler Rat Pack during debutante season. Are you familiar with debutante season, RJ?
I know of coming out. Is that what you mean? Like a coming out party for a debutante?
I'm not sure. Sure, it's like that, but this is in New York. This is guess what they're doing when kids are going off to rich kids schools, the Ivy Leagues, going to studying in France or going to Princeton. Well, during the Christmas break, kind of Catcher in the Rye style, you're like, well, they're not the kids that are staying home or staying at the school. They're actually going back home to hang out with their family and see their old friends, and they're going to do fun things like we're going to dress up every night before Christmas. And we're going to go. We're going to do adulting. We're going to do sophisticated things and have some drink and do some mescaline and that kind of stuff. Like they're just doing they're playing adults,
right?
But they have the money and resources to do it. Well, Tom, is that right? No, Nick is fallen out of the ability to be part of this social group. He was dating a girl, Serena, who's kind of part of this upper crust. They broke up, and his parents have now divorced, and he's kind of he knows that this kind of group exists, and he kind of wants to see her again. And so it's he almost kind of off camera is just standing around while one of these things is going on, and then they're like, oh hey, what about that cab? That's how I interpreted some of this. I could be a little wrong with Nick's motivation, but there's this idea that he rented it very particularly to be one of these groups, and then he kind of winds up being taken under the wing of these rich kids who Tom, who's kind of the pseudo leader of them. He's just definitely the one that talks the most. He seems to really take to Nick for whatever reasons he has.
I think it's a grooming thing.
He's grooming him for what? To join the movement?
That's a Metropolitan too. That you got to find out. There's the payoff to that there, but I do think also what you said. He's trying to be situation, not Nick, the other dude, to get taken in, but also there's a lot of talk of escorts where they're like we'll hire you we'll get you as an escort tonight, and they kind of take him on like that. It's kind of a weird
well, there's this idea that there's these there's the girls, and they're basically they've had these guys that are you're going to be there to walk us home at night and make sure that we're attended to. No funny stuff.
What do you mean by attended to?
Well, that they're just hey, we're not left alone with these parties, and we're doing debutante things, but it's proper society where you put your hand like this. You see what I'm doing, RJ? Yeah, with the wrist. And
you're swirling your brandy. Is that what you're doing there?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Contemplating. Yeah. Being pithy. So.
Yeah.
RJ, what are your thoughts of Fourier? For or against? You're a farm kid.
Fourier? I would say Fourier is definitely the one that's the most.
The mostest with the ghostest with the mostest?
It's definitely the most, if you know what I mean, Jarrett. Yeah, I know Fourier.
We all do.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Fourier.
So you get these. So whatever. He gets invited up to Sally Fowler's apartment. I guess it's her place. But there's one apartment. It's Christmas time. This is also a Christmas movie, right? It's very it's very Christmassy, but there's there's very little discussion about Christmas. It's just kind of a backdrop, and it makes for nice natural lighting. And when you're shooting on location, it's everyone gets to wear coats. The ground's wet, so it's easier to light, and people get to wear their coats. And of course, old Nick, he's only got his raincoat with a lining, everyone else is wearing proper, stylish winter jackets.
Yes. Yes. A lot of winter coats. There's a lot of conversations about these coats as well, Jarrett. A lot of talks of the right overcoat and things like that. There's
and where to get a proper suit in all these different places.
Couple scenes as such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the kind of movie where there's characters. They have discussions. And, they'll make kind of jokes about a dead, like, there'll be like these lines, these zinger lines talking about a dead father, saying, oh, it was really hard on the daughter or whatever. And then someone will say, it was hard on him too.
What does that mean?
Because he's dead.
Wow.
Yeah. Or talking about when, I think it's Charlie, the guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
He's talking about like how, in New Yorkers, it's kind of people are described and depicted as like always being divorced and with loose morals, and that it's a bad stereotype. And it's like that's more of the Southamptons.
They really zinged you on that one, eh? Did you feel zinged by that?
I didn't. I just kind of went, this is such a New York movie.
Yeah. I was just like, man, to be alive in New York
City.
New York City.
And then we have my note here, Rick the Ponytailsman. He's a baron.
Yeah, see, that's the alpha.
No,
that guy's the alpha.
Yeah, that's the one that Tom bristles under. Who is the? I'm sure RJ's tagged this film with incel and incel fanfic. I believe this is aimed at Tom, who does go on a couple of screeds.
He's got some ideas, man. He's got some ideas on how things should be and how.
He's the first to. He's the first to be shouting out about sluts.
Yeah, this is like the second or third Criterion in a row where we get a loud slut shout by someone. No. If you know what I mean, like by literally, I mean that.
So Tom isn't a good incel. Really hates Rick because Rick is a real Chad.
Yes, he is. No. Yes, he is. Yeah.
I forgot to mention that I watched Martial Law this week as well. One of those Vinegar Syndrome archive films. Real piece of shit. It stars Chad McQueen, son of Steve McQueen.
Is Steve McQueen the race car in that Cars movie?
Yeah, he's the race car.
He's the race car.
Yeah.
Chad McQueen, eh?
Chad.
Have you ever met someone named Chad that wasn't a Chad? Do you know what I mean?
No.
You know what I mean, right?
Never.
They're all Chads, right?
They're all Chads.
Yeah.
So, Rick, though, this ponytail dude, that guy, wicked Chad. Tom, wicked incel. It's hard to describe. Yeah. Like, there's no real plot to this movie. A lot of it is just kind of these incidents. Like, it takes place over the course of, like, whatever, like, a week before Christmas, and then you get to see a little bit after Christmas, which we see at one point described as orgy week.
Yeah, there's orgy week for sure.
I got a screenshot of that for you, by the way.
Yes.
So what's happening here is like we're getting the blossoming kind of attraction that Audrey, she's kind of positioned as our like female lead, I think, who's like really taken with Nick and his red hair. He becomes her default escort, and she's like they have these discussions. They're talking about the novel. They're talking about Jane Austen, Mansfield Park, and Nick informs her that's like, well, I don't know, that's such lesser work. I mean, who even bothers reading these things? They're very bad of modern times. And then of course it's like, he talks about the criticism of it, and she's like, well, what do you think of it? She's like, I don't read novels.
I did like that part because it reminded me of a lot of people who would comment on our YouTubes for our things where it's like, oh, this is complete horseshit. And it's like, well, what did you think of it? And it's like, I don't read them. I just read the criticisms and the reviews of it. It's like, you're going to get the best of all of it if you just do that. And I go, I'm sure there's a lot of Criterion fans who do very similar things. You know what I mean, Jarrett?
Yeah, this is why this is a real Criterion jam for some folk.
Yes.
It's kind of like, that's us on the screen.
Look, so finally I'm being represented.
Yeah. And then we do see that Serena, is kind of lurking around, and then this is when Nick's kind of getting all like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to her," and everyone's like, "What?" Well, the one, I'm not sure if it Sally Fowler. There's like the one brunette that's that like I'm not sure if it's her place specifically or if it's the blonde. I'd have to actually look at these characters' names.
I can't remember. Yeah, I don't remember places.
I remember the characters, but I'm like, who owns this place? But she's the one that also winds up asking Nick, how would you rate who you're most attracted to in descending order? Who are you most interested in romantically? That one.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's kind of the one saying, "Hey, Nick, Serena is a little wondering why you don't talk to her." And so this is kind of where he's lurking. He's like, I feel real bad about that. I mean, I feel like he can't get over her. He's got photos on his bedstand, even though Audrey's making a lot of suggestions, I think, of her own interest in him. But he's just like, doesn't care about it. He's like, no. I'm a Serena guy.
So no, I'm not doing that. No way.
There is a note here about vomiting Fred. He's kind of the fat friend of the group.
Yeah, and he pukes.
And he's talking about. He said it must have been the Vienna sausages.
So I didn't even drink that much. It's just the Vienna sausages. And you go, okay.
You big old lush. I mean, hopefully these people are of age, surely.
Well,
there's a lot of like. I don't even have really a lot of notes specifically about Charlie, the one with the glasses, because he has a lot of these monologues that are like trying to like excuse the bourgeois. There's some very direct references to other Criterion film, Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, talking about how it's an unfair depiction. He thought, finally, a film is going to explain what's so charming about being bourgeois. But the film, it's classic surrealist, just attacking it and missing the point altogether.
And he's the one who his big thing is like, you think it's easy being the upper crust? You think it's easy for us to have to make the hard decisions to have the money?
There's a lot of pressure, and eventually people fail. And then there's that scene where kind of in that last third where they're at the bar meeting like a grown-up version of themselves, and the guy's just like real, like, oh yeah, I don't know, it's real depressing when I meet people who are more successful than me, and they always ask you inevitably, what are you doing these days? And I get real depressed. That's why I hate seeing people I know, because I know inevitably, even when they don't ask, they're thinking, what are you doing lately? What's he been doing? It's pretty good. Like, I'm like, that's that could get to you. But then of course, like Charlie's like, well, eventually, the direction of these things is there's failure. It's a downward thing. And the guy's like, no, it's like nah, nothing gets that bad.
Yeah.
Because it even gives Nick this like knowing look of like, you're a friend here. He's gravely mistaken. It's great to be rich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and see, that's good too, right?
Yeah.
That part is good, but it's that talk,
Right. So there's this whole bit where so Nick he gets this opportunity Serena kind of finds him and corners him at a party, and he's supposed to be escorting Audrey, and then he tells Fred, hey, Fred, who's like going to go vomit. Hey, Fred, you got to tell them that to wait for me, or make sure you escort Audrey to the next party, and I'll meet them at Sally's. And he takes off and he starts smooching with Serena. What a lout! But of course he doesn't see it that way because he only has eyes for Serena, and that's exactly what he wants. What a tart! What a tart, RJ!
A what?
A tart.
Wow.
So
I wouldn't use such a word. But...
So they're like, Audrey's very like, where is he? Where's Nicky Poo?
Mm-hmm.
And so she's sad. They go back to the party, and then Nick does show up. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I told Fred. And everyone's like, yeah, sure, Nick. You piece of shit.
They really let him have it, eh?
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't realize it was a big deal. He's like, well, you didn't realize a whole lot, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. And you go, geez, all right.
I had a note here, Charlie, four-eyed knob-end.
Is that what they call him at one point?
No, that's what I was like. I'm like, this guy, he's just so annoying. Because this is like the scene, I think, another night, where they're at a restaurant, and he's going on about like his more accurate acronym for being preppies, because these are all prep kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, was it urban hot? What's UMD? Do you remember what it was? What the acronym was?
WebMD.
WebMD.
Yeah, I think that's where you find out if you're bourgeois or not.
Nice.
Is I think what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No, I don't remember what it is.
Oh, RJ, you let me down here.
I don't remember much, man. You know that.
We're supposed to take notes. Urban hot bourgeoisie. That is sociologically, he says, that is more accurate.
Is that kind of like UHF?
Like UHF. That is exactly what I was like. UHF?
UHF? Yeah.
But I did like when he had to, of course, use hot bourgeoisie. And I think one of the girls says, is our language so impoverished that we have to use acronyms or French phrases to make ourselves understood? To which he responds, yes.
Yes.
No. So this is when it hit me that this movie isn't like a Woody Allen deal. This movie is extremely Godardian. Jean-Luc,
Godardian.
Very Godardian. That Audrey, she's basically kind of like an Anna Karina character.
Okay.
Because there's that one scene where it's like when she's walking around the streets, and then there's the song about crying.
Yes. Yeah. I know. Okay. I know.
Yeah. So Carolyn Farina, yeah, she is kind of playing this. The Anna Karine type of character, and like I'm almost like, man, this is like, that's what this is. This is bourgeois Godard, which is a weird thing because Mr. Glassware Godard wouldn't be like us. But I think this movie is much better than the majority of Godard's efforts. I think
potentially,
and so yeah, we're supposed to feel very sad about poor rich girl crying. RJ, she's sad. She just likes that boy, and she's bummed that she got ditched, and it's going to get and it's going to get worse because they're going to do a little, like, it's not spin the bottle, but it's burning Kleenex with a cigarette butt until the dime falls, and then you have to admit something embarrassing. And of course, the defense of not doing this from Audrey and from Charlie is that it's too exposing, and that candor will doom us all. The idea that like frankness is actually not a good thing. And this scene comes up because when asked, he says, "Well, I'm actually just only attracted to this from Nick. I'm only attracted to Serena. That's the only person I would have eyes for." So, was there anybody else? So, no, that wouldn't make any sense. Like, you should only be interested with this one particular person at any given time. I mean, after that, I would just go into a non-romantic state. There's no consideration for anybody else. And this is while Audrey's sitting right beside him, and you get to see her heartbreak right in front of you.
Have you ever had to like let known your emotional and attractedness to other people while they're in the room with you? Have you ever had to do that?
Oh, I mean,
been put on the spot?
I tried. When haven't I been in that
situation? I mean, for your job, you have to quite a bit.
Yeah, it just comes with the territory on Zoom.
Yeah, I guess, sir. It's like, I'm not wearing any pants. I'm looking at you, Carl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know
what's going on here.
Yeah, I do.
So there's like kind of the other line that I've neglected in my notes here was Tom. He's kind of guiding Nick through this, and he's kind of like, he's leveling with him, saying that like Nick's kind of apprehensions about doing certain things, or like, you should come out to this thing. You should come out to this thing. And he's like, well, I don't know what I should be doing. It's like, what? Are you going to like go home and fret about the poor? And he's like, well, yeah. He's like, that doesn't get you anywhere, because Tom is a dick. And he talks, and he kind of like is the de facto leader of this group, because when he does leave, he goes off to like a Texas debutante thing. The group kind of breaks up. At that point, he seems to be the person that was like making them all do stuff, and as soon as he's not around, they're like, "Yeah, well, fuck that."
Because he's the incel.
He's the incel, but he does not like the threat that Rick presents, because he makes up this whole story about this horrible incident that this Rick guy did, and of course, he's like, "Wow, that's a crazy story," and he's like, "Well, it's a composite, like out of a New Yorker article." It's like a series of people that I'm sure existed, and he definitely did something bad.
He says, "I've seen things that are like this."
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna assume that it has happened.
Yeah. This, of course, causes a little bit of a turn. But of course, like when they turn on this, I think one of the characters, she goes like to describe old Nick, and this is a quote, and that you're completely impossible and out of control with some sort of drug problem and a fixation on what you consider Rick von Sloniker's wickedness. You're a snob, a sexist, totally obnoxious and tiresome. And lately, you've gotten just weird. Why should we believe anything you say? His response is, I'm not tiresome.
Hey Jared, that's when all the guys adjust their ascots and they go, ooh.
My neckerchief
Said, man, he let him have it.
I adjusted a little bit to let the steam off because I go, this is sizzling.
He said, sizzling, satire, and witticism.
Yeah. So then Nick goes on a date with Serena, and he becomes very crushed at the realization that all the letters that he sent her from years ago, she was like, I didn't keep those.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? He's like very like upset by this. 'Cause he's like,
I don't like his rationale though, because that's very incel-y, where he's kind of like, he's like, if someone goes to the effort of writing you a letter, you keep it. And she's like, why? I already read it. She's like, what use am I going to have? She's like, I don't want to be an old person with a bunch of letters from like grade 8. And he's like, if someone writes you a letter, someone takes the effort and time to do something personal for you, you better keep it. He says it in that tone too. It's very threatening, Jared. I don't know if you noticed that.
He's masking his annoyance by being rational. But it's kind of I get that a little bit. But then you get the realization. He gets the big reveal that it's like, well, a friend of mine like kept the letters. They actually like they wanted to keep them. They didn't think they should get like thrown out because I didn't have any use for them. It's like, who kept those letters? And it was Audrey. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
And then this is where it sets in his mind. Oh well, she's so I enjoy being with her so much more. And with Serena, it's like, yeah, I can leave things with her now. It wasn't going to work anyway, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's like, yeah, Audrey, that's who I want. But the group, the Rat Pack is split up. Everyone's kind of gone their separate ways. These girls are like, I'm done with these guys, and like there's like the leftovers kind of are like hanging around. It's just the three sad bastards now because Tom's gone, and now it's like kind of like I don't know how much money these guys have between them. Nick, who I haven't really mentioned, so his parents are divorced. He lives with his mom in like a small little New York apartment, and his dad is like sort of this estranged figure with a wife, and they just like picked up and left and didn't even tell him that he now lives in Santa Fe. And you're like, and it's kind of like this gets dropped in the movie. You're kind of like, oh man, that's pretty fucked up. That's a pretty shitty dad move right there.
I mean, well, it's parenting, Jared. Parenting is hard.
Yeah, he's just like, I moved to another city. Forgot to mention that. Don't return your calls. So you're left with the three. You got Fred, you got Charlie, and you've got Nick. And they're kind of like they're trying to like have fun on their own, and it's like just not the same. They're not drinking because they can't afford it because they were like these are the guys kind of hanging off of the more rich people, but these guys are like kind of. Charlie's got some money. He withdrew what he called a lot of money, which turned out to be like $120. And of course, so what happens is they become very concerned because they're trying to like figure out where the other girls have gone. And there's like, wait a minute, what do you mean? We've been told that they were out late this night. And like, well, we have to make phone calls. So they wait till 7 a.m. Charlie starts making annoying phone calls for the first 7 minutes. After 7 a.m. calls Nick. It's like, well, I called her. We have to meet immediately. This is of great concern. Because Cynthia's parents said that Cynthia was staying at Audrey's place. And Audrey's parents said that Audrey's staying over at Cynthia's place. This is not meant to be. The last time anyone saw them was at 4 p.m. And we have this like, I don't know. I really thought this stuff was like pretty good of like them trying to find a rental car, and the fact that none of them have licenses. And it's like, well, I would get one if I needed one, but I live in Manhattan. he's like, oh, these are just like stupid kids. And they're very motivated to like save the potential of like, oh my god, that Rick guy who like caused that one fictional girl and maybe some other girls to like be besmirched and be ravaged and spoiled, and even to the point where they kill themselves. We have to save Audrey from this. A little bit of some white knighting to go to the rescue. But it's like very pathetic because they can't do anything on their own. They're like walking around a lot, have to call cabs, pay $120 to drive out to the Southamptons to this beach, hoping that they're actually there. And then there's like a pair of panties just left on the beach. And it's like, that's a pair of panties. And it's like, son of a bitch.
I did like that one because, you know, the reputation and the implication as well, Jarrett. You know about the implication?
Yeah, I know about it. I've heard about it. I watched enough Criterion Collection films. I've learned all about it.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's about the implication, Jared. Yeah. That's what these guys are talking about.
I think there's a bit where they're driving along too, where I think it's like Nick. Oh yeah, well, because the other thing is, what would Tom do?
I ask myself that daily.
Because he's like he takes life by the horns when he's not like yelling at women until they start slapping him, and he says, "Don't you do that again."
What did you think of that one, Jared? Did you relate?
What a good dude Tom is, the raging incel guy, who lays it out, but he's real cool. But like when these people are left to their own devices, they're like, what would he do? What should we aspire to be? And you're like, and it's like maybe
they
not.
Go on to write Joker, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah. So like you agree with me though. This isn't one of those times where you're like maybe you're not using the word incel right. Tom is an incel, right?
Misogynist.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the word I think you're going for, but
well, yeah. Potato incel.
Cuz I mean he is like having sex with
allegedly
girls. No, they say it, and it's like and one of them actually says it, and he's like he's an asshole.
Yeah.
But some of these things are like, this sounds like manifesto times.
It does. He's building up to a solution, Jared. Yeah. Some sort of solution. Do you know what I mean?
So when they're driving in the cab, I think Nick does this thing where it's like, I think Fourier might have been a crank. And then Charlie's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to live on a farm with a bunch of other people. I don't know. I thought that was very funny. It's like where they're like questioning these things. Like, yeah, I don't really care about any of the things that I was saying earlier. Like, yeah, this lived experience, like walking around in New York trying to rent a car, and like all these these things that are like standing in their way. You're like, yeah, life, huh? And they're just like, yeah, let's do things. It's like, yeah, you're just dopes. And then this movie's permeated with just like the bossa nova music.
Bossa Nova music?
Yeah, all throughout this thing. And then there's some instrumental stuff too, and some Christmas Eve or Christmas Day church music stuff where Audrey's sad. But they bust in on Rick, who's just lounging around. I was in his underpants or jeans. And then there's the girls, but there's Audrey. She's all fully dressed. She gets called flat-chested because clearly she's just like along for the ride and not playing this shit. And she's very like kind of pleased to see these guys show up out of nowhere. Nick gets punched in the face by Rick, and he produces a gun, which is a toy Derringer. But
yeah, but that could take an eye out.
Could take an eye out. But
you know what I mean?
So these two managed to save her, even though she was just kind of like hanging out bored, getting a suntan in like with these tanning lights inside of this beach house, and
allegedly
they start making their way off, trying to making phone calls. Some love and interest seems to be kind of revealed, and talking about, well, maybe we'll go to France and visit you or something like that. Our flights are pretty cheap. And Charlie's getting upstanded, but he seems to be totally okay with that. He's like, yeah, I'll wait. I don't know. And then they're walking along. Again, very, very Godardian. There's two guys and a girl just palling around, living life, band of outsiders style. Like again, like it was like became really clear on rewatch. I was like, oh man, this is a little bit more Godard than Woodrow
Ballin.
Alan Ballin.
The guy I was talking about earlier.
Well, he's different. That's a different talent.
That's a different dude?
Yeah, different dude. So anyway, yeah, first time I was watching this, I did not want to watch it. and I was like, fuck this movie. And on rewatch, I was like, oh, no, this movie's actually pretty good. I actually quite liked it. But if you're not in the mood for this type of movie with this like very I don't know, particular types of characters, with this style, like I don't know if you call it stylized dialogue, but these characters speak with this affectation, and I'm like, is this how this type of character would talk? With these, like, you know, Princeton kids, would they be just addressing each other in this sort of high class manner? Perhaps. I'm not a high class university student, allegedly. So I'm not exactly sure how the upper crust do things, but upon on revisit, I found like, oh no, this movie kind of actually does kind of strip that stuff out as it goes on, and at the end of the day, it's just kind of like a, I don't know, young people in love, and the bumpy road along the way, while kind of situating it in kind of an unusual setting where you don't really see these types of characters in movies presenting this type of plot. So that's that. I thought Metropolitan was pretty good. It's very much a flip from my initial like, fuck this. But so I think it's actually pretty okay. Hey RJ.
Yeah.
What did you think of Metropolitan?
Fuck this movie. I only watched it once, so I only have the first impression. I will say, I'll give you this. You talking about it makes it sound better, I think, than it plays out.
I genuinely think that if you rewatch this, you would enjoy it a lot more, because
I'm sure that's probably
because I do see that. I'm not sure if Howling Man is a listener of the podcast, but I see Howling Man gave this bad boy about a half star with a review. Allow me to quote my favorite film critic with regards to describing how I felt about Metropolitan. It stinks. So you know what? I was right there with you on my first view there, Howling Man. But upon rewatch, it's like a totally different experience. And
Howling Man's got good taste. Day the Earth Stood Still, Jason and the Argonauts, Blood on Satan's Claws, Day of the Dead, favorite films. Anyways, so like I said, I think you kind of doing some heavy lifting and picking out some of the better parts of it, I think, help this movie's impression. I didn't hate this movie or anything like that, but I was bored by it, and I was the first watch, I was very much like what you said. I was kind of like, I don't care. And it's mostly because, especially in the last 2 years as we've been doing this, I think a lot of these types of movies where it is upper crust people, I find it a lot harder to try to care for these people and sympathize, because
100%,
because the Eat the Rich campaign, I feel like is really gotten legs in the last year or two. So that, like, and I know what you mean too, where you're like, well, it's I think what you're saying is the point is that it's that setting, but then deep down it's these just these kids that are actually having like normal kid problems. Yeah. But then you get the scenes where they still are just rich kids because they can just go do whatever they want, and then like that there's parts of that roll into it, which again, like, I don't think it's necessarily the movie, because like, you know, people did used to really like watching these movies because they could pretend like they were rich, I guess. But now I think it's really flipped with like the popular masses, where it's just like, fuck watching these rich people. Let's watch some movies about hobos and do that, because it's like that's where I'm headed.
The hobos, do they fuck?
Well, Boudou, Saved from Drowning, answers that question for you, Jarrett, in detail.
Boudou fucks.
Boudou. Well, yeah, consensual or not, he does it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Renoir.
Yes, exactly. But this movie actually is it's funny. My old roommate Scott bought this one time because of the description it used to have on Criterion, and it sounded like it was going to be up both of our alleys at the time.
Oh yeah.
And this was before we started podcasting, and then we never really got to it because he always went home at Christmas, and we're always like, oh, we'll watch it at Christmas because it's a Christmas movie. And then he always went home, and then it never happened. And then we started the podcast, and I was like, well, I don't want to watch it anymore. But it was kind of funny. I showed Andrea the trailer to this because I described it, and I was like, she's like, is this an old movie? I was like, 90s? And she's like, 90s, huh? She's like, that might be interesting.
90s sweat?
90s. Yeah, well, there's not as much 90s sweat, though. Except for when that guy's
not
puking.
remotely. Well,
except for when that guy's puking.
What timing as I send you screenshots? And then that very one.
And that very one, yes. That'll be a good one to use. But it's funny, I showed Andrea the trailer, and she's like, it looks like the movie I would like, but not the movie I want to watch. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I was like, so do you want to watch it with me? And she's like, no, I'm going to watch Bubble Boy instead. And I was like, what? She's like, I don't know. I was just thinking about that movie. And I was like, okay. So I watched this while she was watching Bubble Boy.
Well, it does star you.
It does, yeah. In early days podcasting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I was mostly just uninterested in it because it was all the conversations I feel like I was actually like paying like close attention to when I wasn't resting my eyes were the conversations where
so you were resting your eyes.
There were times when I was resting my eyes during this film, but I was always listening. But the few times that I was actually like really like watching were the times where it was like the guy who's like complaining about how the bourgeois weren't represented that much, and then I only kind of saw the scene later where it's like they try to break that down a little bit, but it was like that scene. And then anytime Tom was talking basically, and like when he makes up the story, and then he's just like belittling the women and stuff, and they're like slapping him. Those are those like scenes I actually watched with like very focused intent, and I was like, man, this is just another incel movie, but about rich people. And I was like, that's lame. So I did. I watched most of it, and I did write down lots of stuff that I was going to take screenshots of. Like the discrete charm stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I see. But I did the one thing I did kind of like was that literary. I like the little playoff with that literary criticism scene where he's like, oh, I don't read the books. I just do that. So there's scenes like that I actually did like. That one was good. And some of the scenes like later where they kind of flip things, like I did like the cab ride out to the Hamptons. That one was like when they're just riding out there and they're kind of talking about all the bringing back shit. I was like, oh, that's good.
Well, because it kind of reduces it down to like these are the losers.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, these are just like they don't have like maybe all the glam and this like kind of like bourgeois. He keeps positioning himself. Charlie does as bourgeois, but you're like, maybe he's not like as. Maybe he isn't as of unlimited means as was suggested, because he has like so much money he can take out, and then he can't do anything with it, and he has to call a cab and like they drive out endlessly. And it's like, and then he's trying to call for a ride, and it's like, yeah, it's only about an hour away, or 2 hours, I don't know, because he doesn't know where anything is. He's completely hopeless.
Yeah,
which is like, I don't know if it's like, oh, rich people, they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, they're like, I mean, these are things that nobody knows what they're doing until you have to do things for the first time in your life, and you realize, oh, it takes effort and resources to do any of this stuff, and it's not as straightforward and pontificating. Sometimes the best times are when you're actually like having to just go with it, to go with the flow.
And do you ever go with it?
I'm vibing, RJ. I'm vibing.
Interesting.
Well, I'm
glad, or not. I'm glad that you took the deep dive again and went for it, because it sounds like you got something out of it. That's good.
An immensely improved experience for me on the second viewing.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I'm
because I was surprised, because I was like, look, I mean, I'm not sure if that's like a common thing, because I was like noticing a lot of people that we follow very high, very high on this film, and I was kind of like, man, this movie like sucks. Fuck the rich. Eat
the rich,
and then you figure out, oh, okay, this is what the movie's actually kind of about. It's just kind of got those trappings of richness, which is kind of like, I don't know, that's a choice. But there's also the thing about the novel and talking about like Jane Austen, And
yes, I know what you mean.
Right.
There's some illusions
yes,
with an A to those kinds of things, not illusions. You know what I mean?
right.
Not those times.
Illusions.
But yeah, I'm glad you liked it. It's like I said, I don't hate this movie. I was not very interested by it for a good chunk of the movie, and I went, eh.
No, that's my first viewing was probably a bit more aggressive than that, because I was just like frustrated that this like why would anyone care about this movie?
Yeah. And it's too bad that this is our job, our unpaid internship for Criterion, because as you said,
John doesn't pay very well.
He doesn't pay at all. A rewatch would probably help, but I'm not going to do that because contractually obligated. I can't rewatch these films, so
right.
It's too bad. Too bad. Oh well.
Oh
well. Anyways,
I think though if you rewatch it, you should rewatch it with Andy and see how that goes.
Well, when Metropolitan 2 comes out, I'll definitely have to rewatch it before.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if Whit Stillman has any other of his movies in the collection. It's a good question. I'm going to look up right this very moment before we get to.
Would it just be Last Days of Disco?
Wait. Yeah, so that's one. I'm not sure about Barcelona though.
Barcelona. I think this. You say the C like a TH. Barcelona is what I've been led to believe.
Is this from Curb Your Enthusiasm?
No, apparently that's what they actually say there. I mean, maybe we can get. There's got to be some Barcelona people listening to this podcast.
Oh, look at that! Barcelona even has the same artwork style as Metropolitan, as does Last Days of Disco.
Are they both Criterion?
They're all three of them. Yep, they're all in the collection.
Damn.
So damn. Whit Stillman. What's my number? Is this 807? Right around the corner.
Yeah.
It looks. Is that the same character? It looks like the same guy.
Probably
Whit
the same
Stillman
guys.
followed his delightful indie breakthrough Metropolitan with and also the other thing though too, Metropolitan is a film debut. It's the guy's first movie, and that's pretty good. Like for a first film, I think that's maybe why a lot of people check it out. I mean, there is shots in it that there's some shots in like daytime New York that I was like, man, this looks like some shots from New York Ninja. Like how uninspired the lighting is. It's so flat, but most of it doesn't look that way.
No, not really.
Oh, look at this! What a twist in this film. Whit Stillman followed his delightful indie breakthrough with another clever and garrulous comedy of manners, this one with a darker edge. A pair of preppy yet constitutionally mismatched American cousins, a salesman and a Navy officer, argue about romance and politics while working in the beautiful Spanish city of the film's title. Set during the 80s, Barcelona explores topics both heady, American exceptionalism, Cold War foreign policy, and hilarious, the ins and outs of international dating, the proper shaving method, while remaining a constantly witty delight, featuring a sharp young cast that includes Taylor Nichols, Chris Eichman, and Mira Sorvino.
Wow. That's huge.
Are you sold? Are you gonna?
Well, the Mira Sorvino thing really sold me.
Well,
if only we could get Juliette Lewis in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a real slam dunk.
A slam dunkin'?
Out of this park. We could try to make that catch on.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try for you.
Yeah, Chris Eigerman is Nick in this film. Good to see
oh, yeah. Yeah, and he's in Gilmore Girls.
Boom.
There you go.
No Edward Clements, though.
Yeah.
Oh, Taylor Nichols. I was saying, like, the guy in the picture looks exactly like Charlie, and it is. He's he's back in...
I mean, that makes sense, right?
In Taylor Nichols form. And, who could forget Congo?
Congo. Congo's awesome.
And he was in Godzilla 2014.
As Godzilla?
Nope.
That's cool.
Pretty good turn. Want to hear who hates Metropolitan?
Yeah, sure. Let's see.
Let's see what they have to say. Luke, 0.5 star. While this wishes it was Jane Austen, Austen actually knew how to write. Also, this same shit was done by Godard. Wow, look at that. With Le Chinoise, and was far more interesting and on the dot. Boo. Gives me bad vibes about Last Days of Disco.
Does that mean they don't want to watch it?
I guess so.
I guess. Well, this person gave a half a star to Kill List, and a half a star to Freddy Got Fingered.
Oh, boy.
And a half a star to Thin Red Line. But here's their bio. I swear I actually like movies. I can't help that they all suck. Favorite films include something called I from last year, something called Shit from 1969, On the Waterfront, and Yesterday, which I think is some kind of Beatles movie from 2019.
So I shit on the waterfront yesterday.
Wow.
You did it, buddy.
I fell for it.
Yeah,
Hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, man. You bit hard.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Got you good.
Damn it. But, I don't know.
Sick burn.
All the regular stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay, want to hear about Philip Daniel Chartrand for half a star?
Yeah. Let's get me Philip Daniel Chartrand.
Oh, PDC?
PDC, yeah. Just like GDP.
I don't know that I've ever been nonplussed in such a way. Oh, God, now I'm speaking like one of them. Nonplussed. Look, I get it. The gimmick here, the thing makes the film unique, I suppose, is the idea of the world of the story and the characters we follow. A financially elevated society whose affluence is little seen by the general public, whose stories are rarely remarked upon in popular art and culture. It's an interesting thought experiment. I always cringe just a little bit when I or others look to completely tear a film apart. I never want to state things that way, mainly because as my mind begins to go down that route, I start to think of how a production assistant might have gotten his first job on this film, or how an assistant camera operator worked on a shot for 4 hours, 6 feet away from a steaming sewer grate, sweating through his or her clothes, just to get a shot that the decision makers believed must be in the film, only to later be edited out for the final cut. When I think of that, it makes me want to be less cutting and more professional with one's criticism. That being said, I will probably never come back to this.
You know what else he won't come back to? Letterboxd. Because this is the last movie he watched in September of 2021.
Oh, damn.
So, he might be dead, dude.
Oh, no.
Favorite films include The 39 Steps, which is like nobody's favorite film. Vertigo, When Harry Met Sally, and The Godfather. Only 2 half-star films, Metropolitan and Bad Santa, starring Billy Bob Thornton, which is a good show.
Not bad.
It's a good show.
Jeremy Barron.
I see him.
Quote from the film, "What do you study in France that you can't study here?" French.
No.
Yes. Downwardly mobile until it slides nearly off my television screen. Thank you very much. Completely pointless. I don't remotely care about any of these characters or their alleged problems. If this is supposed to be a satire, it's a bad one. Instead, it resembles a sneering right-wing Big Chill with jacked up elitism, and it is pretty much unwatchable.
Wow. Fuck, he got him, hey?
Jacked up elitism.
Favorite films include Uncut Gems, Miami Vice, Raw, and Love Streams. Other half-star films include The Squid and the Whale, Tenet, Walkabout, and The Love Guru, which I know you're a big fan of. Some one-star films, Jarrett, Run Lola Run, Lost in Translation, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Oh, bullshit.
Yeah, it's not a one-star film.
No, nice try, Pose Dog. We all know it's fine artisanal cinema.
Yeah, and if you don't think so, maybe you didn't watch it right.
Yeah.
That's what I gotta say.
Damn right. Doing Bill dirty like that?
He tried his best, okay? Just leave him alone. He tried. You know?
That's all we can ever do.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Well. Any final thoughts on Metropolitan, RJ?
No, I didn't much care for it, but like
I'm not gonna say you should feel differently about it, because
Yeah.
if I hadn't watched it for the second time this week, I would be right there with you, dumping on this movie. Probably much worse than you didn't really do at all. But I'm glad I did a rewatch, because I was like, oh, this movie actually is pretty good.
Yep. I think it was completely a movie that exists in the Criterion Collection.
Yep.
And that's about as much as I can say about it.
I mean, I guess for me, I'd say it's been a surprise highlight from a long run of nothingness. It feels.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was to say, hey, RJ, what's the last good one that you watched? Would you be able to answer that question?
No. I couldn't. I don't even remember what the movies we've watched have been the last couple of weeks.
Well, I have to look it up, because I don't either. But upon examination, let's take a look. Diary mode. Criterion Creeps tag. That's the way to do it, my friend. Wow. What a run. And I've been having to rewatch a lot of movies.
You have?
Oh, man. When was the last time I gave something that wasn't a rewatch? Samurai Rebellion was really good. That was in September.
I mean, that's probably it for me too, then.
Because young Mr. Lincoln was just average.
Well, the pie scene was good, but...
The pie. I mean, who could forget the pie scene?
I mean, the pie scene was good.
Yeah, boy, back-to-back Mr. Arcaden and the children are watching us. Le bête humaine.
There was a few back-to-backs. I
really like Virgin Spring, but that wasn't a rewatch for me, and I know you were less cool with that one. And I thought Ran just continues the mediocrity of one Kurosawa. Pickpocket I also liked, and you were like whatever on. So really, I feel like a Samurai Rebellion. That's October. Oh my god.
I mean, that was good.
That's a 4.5 month run though, of like, for you anyway. Now, I mean, I think Metropolitan actually is very good, and before that, shit. Then you start getting back to like Harry Kiri,
well, that movie is really good.
Yes, and then I don't know.
Yeah, it's
This is a grit. What have we done to ourselves? And then before that, for first time watches, you're going back to the Browning version.
Oh Jesus!
And that was June. Oh,
yeah,
dark.
All I gotta say is there's fewer diamonds than there are turds. Do you know what I mean?
It's a lot of digging through turds.
A lot of digging through turds, which is the Criterion Collection. And
turds in an Ottawa and Snowbank.
Exactly. And, I mean, that's the point. People got to know this. Just because it's in here doesn't mean it's good.
That's right, RJ.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways.
After the break,
mm-hmm.
We're going to make sure that RJ gets home. Going to make
the
sure
voyage.
The voyage home.
The voyage home.
The one with the whales.
Man, I like that one. They're all good.